Welcome to Hot Topics, the show where we inspire, we create, and what is the other one here?
Transform.
Transform! This is Gloria Goldberg, the founder of the podcast Unbreakable Life with Glory, where I talk about depression, anxiety, and PTSD in a natural way, a holistic way for always to make you feel better. And next to me, like always, my beautiful co host, Kia Baker.
Hi, everybody. Well, if you don't know me by now, my name is Kia Baker, and I am the creator and host of the Female Veterans Podcast. I am also the creator and host of a new video series called Women Warrior Stories that will be appearing on the Veterans Channel. You can find out more at theveteranschannel.com. And I am a success coach at London Real Academy, where my friend and our leader, Brian Rose, is running for mayor of London. So here in London, vote for Brian.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, how are you, my dear? A little bit late today. I'm sorry, everybody, but we
Yeah.
have a technical issue big time, but we're here.
Yeah. I made it. Actually, it was a crazy so at London Real, we teach about resistance all the time. And
Hey, he's
hi
a friend of mine.
George.
Hey, George.
Hi.
He's a fan of
Back to
me.
you.
He's so cute.
and and we teach about resistance, and there's all kinds of resistance that you can face when you are trying to work towards your goals, right? And one of those types of resistance is technical resistance. And so when you face that, you have to overcome it. You can't let it beat you, right? So
Right.
today I had technical resistance all afternoon, and it ended up creating tardiness. So, for my previous interview, I just finished an interview. Actually, I was the guest on
Wow.
a podcast called How to Do the Pot, a lady's guide to pot smoking, actually. And I was a guest talking about the importance of alternative therapies for veterans and female veterans because it can save lives, really. And so we did an interview. And after I finished with her, when I went to log into here, my tech wouldn't work. So I ended up having to go get an alternate computer, which is high quality problems because what a blessing to be able to go get an alternate computer, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And just be able to come live. But I tried to fix the problem first and I'll have to sort it out later. But here I am. Did an interview today and we're rolling. Yeah.
That's
A
awesome.
little late, but we made it.
It's always this is life. We always try to be. We not always. We always here at 9 o'clock, but things can happen, and this is what it happens. So,
Yeah.
so I can't wait to bring the guests in today because I love this topic today.
Okay. So I'm really excited. I'm really excited
Me too.
because not only is she a really awesome lady, okay, but she's kind of like a sister to me. So, I always talk about this private school that I went to called the Milton Hershey School. It's in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Kind of grew up on a dairy farm, believe it or not. I'm a country girl, at least partially. And there were lots of other students there, and sometimes they pop up and watch the show. And sometimes they get to be a guest. So, like I said, not all of our guests come from London Real. This one is a friend of mine. We actually lived in the same house together in our student home at private school.
Oh, I remember you telling the story about her.
So
Yes.
she actually is amazing. She's like a sister to me. And not only, she actually taught me how to salsa. I will tell you that. That's a
Wow.
useful thing to know how to do, especially if you lived in Miami for 4 years like I did. So thanks.
Right.
I got to say thank you to her for that. But not only that, she's extremely intelligent and she's been an entrepreneur since she could walk, pretty much. And she's created business after business after business that have been successful. And you know what? The entire time, she was a nurse. So let me get into talking to you a little bit more about her, okay? Because well, she has a podcast called The Kush Nurse, and we're going to get into that whole story. But I just want to really point out what her qualifications are, because she has letters behind her name, right? MSN, RN, right? But she's a cannabis nurse, and she has been an extremely long-time advocate, educator, and provider of holistic health to mothers and babies. And she has a personal understanding of postpartum depression and anxiety. She works with so many different kinds of people. She works with women, veterans, families, navigating cannabis for health, for wellness, and along with the lovely Ivory Rosenthal Davis, Sandra founded the Cannabis Nurses of Color. And what this is an organization, it's a virtual space for education, collaboration, and a safe place for nurses who are working or aspiring to work in the cannabis space. So, this is really important work because it actually really removes the stigma
Mm-hmm.
for cannabis use for people who are really suffering. And in addition to that, she really helps people by using her medical knowledge to navigate those sort of newer waters, and she brings
Right.
a lot of credibility to the space as far as how cannabis can be used medically, right? So if you're suffering from a lot of things, and I had her as a guest on the Female Veterans podcast, and it was a huge hit, a huge successful show. And so I wanted to bring her to Hot Topics because there's so much since COVID going on. There's so much, we always talk about like a collective trauma, how everyone's going to have like some version of PTSD, or many people will have, may have some version of PTSD after this experience. And we
Yes.
know that cannabis use can help with PTSD. And if you don't believe me, let's ask a nurse. And that's
Exactly.
why we have one here. So without further ado, let's bring on Sandra and
Let's
start
bring
asking her
Sandra.
questions that can help our global community.
Yes, because a lot of people are like you say, have a lot of taboo about this. So,
Hmm.
hey, Sandra.
Hello, how are you guys doing?
Hi, beautiful. I'm so glad to see you.
Yes, this is so awesome. Thank you guys for having me.
Of
Thank you,
course.
thank you to be in Hot Topics tonight. And before
Yes,
before we start, I want you to share your location and what time it is.
I am in San Diego, California, and it is, let's see, 6:34 p.m.
Wow.
Just like me on the West
I
Coast.
know, but they have better lighting and it's darker there. So clearly I need to work on my lighting.
Like, girl, we see it all. Like sometimes because we're live, sometimes people freeze, sometimes we lose the
Yeah,
connection. We just roll with everything. It's all
that's
Yeah.
good.
hilarious. But no, yes, I'm so excited to be here. This is definitely a hot topic. You guys hit the nail on the head with that one.
For sure.
For sure.
So before we go on, I want
Yes.
to just say that if you are not 18 years old, you need to click off and not watch this. Parents, if your kids are with you, you may determine that you want to watch this first before you decide if it's something you would like them to hear, if they're in the room with you. And as always, these are our disclaimers. You know that the opinions of our guests are not necessarily and the same as our own. However, we believe in their right to have them and we'll share them with all of you. So we always hope that you find value and learn something here with us. And that's it. So,
Yes.
mhm,
So,
yeah.
Sandra, tell us why the Kush Nurse and how everything start from there.
So I grew up with no weed. That was a no, no. Okay. I grew up in a very Catholic home. I grew up with Just Say No and Dare and all the other programs that we're all very familiar with. And then I also, experienced personal experiences in our family with addictions. So drugs overall were a bad thing for me. And I had stigmas, and I'm not going to say I judged people who smoked or used cannabis, but it definitely was like something that they did versus something that I did. And even though I tried it, here and there a few times, it just wasn't my thing. Neither really was drinking, but drinking was way more acceptable, right? And easier to navigate and find. I mean, all those things. When I tell people I lived in the Bronx and I tell them that I'm a cannabis nurse, they're like, of course you are. Like, and I'm like, no, I didn't even know anything about cannabis. I'm not that girl. But what ended up happening is I ran out of options. I ran out of options. So I was I had just had my daughter, I had postpartum depression. I was trying all these medications to help manage my postpartum depression, plus a lot of pain that I was experiencing from my labor, delivery, whatever. And I was like, gosh, everything that I take has these like awful side effects. Either, it takes the pain away, but I feel really sleepy, or, I'm not depressed, but I'm also like kind of angry. I don't know, like, or a zombie, or, there were just all too many ors for me. So at one point, they had also diagnosed me with ADHD, and they said, these medications can help you with focusing, and the medications were awful. But anyway, once I was on them, you're on them, so you can't just get off them. And I remember going to the doctor to get my refill, and he said, if you are going to be taking these, I'd only been on the medication 30 days. It was like the next refill. So I just want to put that disclaimer out there, because this is, from my experience, it made me so empathetic for other people in this situation, okay? I've been on this medication for 30 days, which my doctor prescribed. And he said, if you'd like to continue this medication, I'd really like you to go see a psychiatrist. And I said, okay. In my mind, I'm like, I wasn't really prepared for that. But I said, I can do that if that's what's really needed. But, also, what am I supposed to do? I don't have a psychiatrist. I can just see tomorrow. We know that's not how the system works. Well, he said, well, I'll give you 5 more pills, and then you can try to find your way around that, basically. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, you don't want to refill me on this medication that I'm addicted to, you know what I mean? Like physically addicted to, where my body would have reactions if I just discontinued it. But also, you're giving me 5 days to basically like rush and see somebody. Like, this is a process. This is your health and also your life. So you should be able to have a pause. Wow, okay, this is a different step in my journey. Let me think about this. Let me find the right person for me. No, it was like, so I remember I told my husband, I said, I don't know what to do. I said, but I do know that I'm not going to fill those medications, because it made me feel like I was going to be in this system that I didn't want to be in, and that I was like going to be judged. It felt like all of a sudden something that was making me feel better, there was a judgment about. So I was like, if they're going to judge me for this, well, I'm just going to go do that. I didn't know anything about cannabis. So again, I was like, maybe if I get CBD from the, grocery store. I tried everything. I tried the bombs. I tried different things. I didn't know how to understand these products. So I didn't know what was good CBD, bad CBD, junk CBD, gas station CBD. It was all just stuff that was available to me in the great state of California. And then I knew there were dispensaries, right? And so I did not want to go to the dispensary because the dispensary seemed really scary. All of the things that I'm telling you is what every single client of mine experiences. And I didn't want other people to feel this. I found, luckily, a dispensary that delivers. I called them. I said, I don't know what I need. I don't know what I want. Can you just send me a variety of things that would help with these things? And I don't know how to roll a joint, so I also need help with that. And they sent me like 5 pre-rolls and labeled them all. And I sat there with headphones on. I think I talked about this, Kia, before. Put my headphones on and I sat there, and every time I try a different strain, and I would journal. And what I would do is I would use the voice to text, voice to, type, and I would record what I was experiencing in that moment. Because what I wanted to understand was, not just what my body was feeling, but also what it was doing to my mind, because that's the biggest concern that people have with cannabis is what is it going to do to my mind?
Yeah, it's gonna fry my mind. They're
Yeah,
gonna fry my neurons.
yeah, yeah. So most people think it's their brain. And what I found was that all the strains, all the different varieties that I tried had different mental, they stimulated different parts of my mind. The stories, the things that were opening up and unfolding in my mind were real things that I was experiencing that I had locked up inside of me for years and years and years. And by using cannabis and using these strains, I started to unravel, I guess, all those little, knots in there of traumas, of mental blockages, of all kinds of things. And I was like, I just wanted to get pain relief. This is amazing. And so, at the time, I told my husband what I was going to do, that I wasn't going to get the medication. I was going to try cannabis, but I wouldn't tell him that I smoked. I wouldn't tell him anything. It was mostly like something I did. I didn't want to share that because I was nervous and I
Right.
felt the stigma and the shame. So this was all these things I was kind of doing privately. And every so often I would just like tell my husband, okay, I had this and I kind of had this experience, but it wasn't something like I was like eager to talk about because I was ashamed and I still had that stigma. And, fast forward, I did find relief and went through all those things. And then I said, how can this be so complicated? And how can this be so forbidden when it is literally has impacted my life in such a positive way? And that I was able to get off all the medications I'm on. I have Hashimoto's or hypothyroid, and the doctor is even surprised because I don't take my thyroid medication anymore. It was just a side effect. I didn't take cannabis for that. But what started happening is when I would take the medication, it would make me feel terrible. And I was like, well, maybe I take less. And I kept going and asking the doctor to check my thyroid. And I kept showing him, like, I'm taking less and less and less. And now I'm taking none. And he's like, I don't know how this is working. And I can't tell you not to take your medication. So I go every 3 months and get checked. And every 3 months, my doctor looks at me like, we don't know how it's working. But I say all that to say that in this process, I just began to study and learn so that I could help other people. Because I was like, my goodness, everyone I know was raised on this stigma. Everyone I know was raised on this information, this misinformation, these lies. And then now, as it's becoming legal, people are looking at it, but it's really hard for them to cross the barrier because it's that shame and it's that stigma and it's that narrative that this is something bad and that this is something that you shouldn't use, and that, Western medicine is better. Go to the doctor. What does the doctor say? But doctors can't talk about cannabis because most of the doctors went to medical school and cannabis was listed in one chapter only, in the street drugs chapter. So they also, it's like legalization happened and the doctors are still trying to catch up to that, to that information.
I definitely feel that because, when I was really sick,
Mm-hmm.
I did everything that the VA doctors told me to do. I was on all sorts of medication. And I remember one particular experience when I was in Miami and I told my doctor, I said, listen, she was
Mm-hmm.
prescribing me yet like three or four more. I think I was on like 10 things already. And
Yeah.
she was prescribing me even more pills. And I said, listen, I cannot keep taking all these pills. I feel sick. I feel polluted. I feel like I'm dying.
Right.
That's what I literally told her. And she said,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like I get a kickback for
Yeah.
prescribing all this medication. And I just thought, who brought that up? I didn't bring that. You know what I mean? But I thought,
Yeah.
what a kind of
Yeah.
Right.
distorted thing to say. I'm telling you as your patient that I feel miserable. I'm feeling worse and worse the more things you prescribe to me. And your answer is, nothing really. So I decided in that moment that I was going to get off everything, kind of like you. And I was like, I'm going to figure out alternative ways, holistic
Yeah.
ways to heal myself, because there's got to be something more I can do, whether it's diet, whether it is exercise, whether
Yeah.
it is other types of supplementation. Maybe I'm mineral deficient, maybe I'm this. So I started doing the research, right? And then I remembered, so as I was moving to Washington State, where it's recreationally legal here, okay, I was thinking to myself, when I was younger and I used to suffer with fibromyalgia pain, I used to have a bit of weed when I was in pain. And my role in the military was that of a pharmacist, right?
Hmm.
So I understood pharmacology, and I was trained as a hospital corpsman from the government. So I understand how the body works, and
Right.
and how to do like physician's assistants work and how to do all of that stuff. So I understood biology. And I thought to myself, well, you know what? This worked for me, right? This has properties that can dull my pain. It was just that simple. And that gave me the ability to function and keep going, right? And it was illegal then. So I was being very daring to try to treat myself, because at that time, no one really knew much about fibromyalgia. Half the
Mm.
doctors thought that it was in your head,
Yes.
right? Like that the
Yes.
pain
Yeah,
wasn't
they
really
still,
real.
I mean,
They still don't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So so I thought to myself on my way to Washington, hey, that used to help me. And it's illegal in Washington. Maybe I will try some CBD, because um, I would get certain strains give me anxiety, which I didn't really understand much about that at the time. But I just thought, oh, marijuana gives me anxiety, so I'm not going to smoke it. I'm not
right.
going to have anything to do with it. But when I got out here and I was determined to get clear of all of those medications, I made a lot of life changes. I changed my diet. I did research. I started treating my fibromyalgia care like an autoimmune deficiency. So I made a lot of dietary changes. And every time I tried something, like, I love science, so I conducted experiments essentially on
I
myself,
mean, that's how you
right?
learn.
Right. And I completely understand where you're coming from and
Hmm.
vibe with that, because I did that too. I determined, okay, this is what's going to help me,
Yeah,
and effectively helped me live a better quality of life, which has a ripple effect, which means it makes me a better friend, a better mother, a
of
better
course.
partner, better, I returned to work. Like, I didn't work for a long time, and I was able to start helping
Right.
people and working again. So it has so many benefits. So my question for you is
Hmm.
this: when you first started getting involved with this, how did you begin to educate people about the stigma? Because I grew up like you. That
Me too.
I love Nancy Reagan when I was a kid. I didn't want to have anything to do. Like, I
You're like,
totally remember
Nancy
that.
went to get to my school and I signed the contract.
I did, girl. I was about that life. Okay, I was a young Republican at the time. Okay.
Oh, I can't.
Okay.
I
I'm
can't.
just saying. So I was about
Oh,
that life. I was
I'm
completely
so
straight
rich.
edge. I didn't even try anything until I was an adult.
Yeah.
Right.
Me too. My mom still today. Oh, that is bad. I said,
Yeah.
Mom, come on.
So, this is how I approach things because I'm a nurse. So the most critical thing about being a nurse is we have this thing called standards. And our standards are like what we live by, right? So it's like whatever, you have the standard, the nursing standard that you're supposed to live by. So the standard also means that when we are educating people, we're always giving them evidence-based knowledge. And that means this information has been reviewed, has been, it's run the course and test and has been deemed to be the standard, right? Although, can I cuss on this show?
Yes.
Yes, of
It's
course. You can
bullshit
do what you want.
because I'll be honest with you. Many times I look at these journals and I'm like, this is the worst study ever. Like, you didn't have enough people. What was what was the demographics? Like, but the whole point is that they submitted these articles, and because cannabis is this area that people don't know a lot about, it's like, oh, well, we have a research article, so let's run with it. It's got 5 participants or whatever it is. So I started to look at this information and I said, if I'm going to help people, then I'm going to help people by finding the real good stuff. And I told myself I didn't care about curing cancer, right? Like a lot of people find cannabis and they're like, if you're dying, yes, cannabis is for you. If you have cancer, yes, cannabis is for you. And it feels like we almost give a pass for cannabis if like somebody's dying or has cancer. And I was like, no. I was like, wellness is the end game. That's it. Like I want to help people feel well, feel good. And I knew that it was possible. I knew that I had seen it in myself. And my husband was my first patient, other than me. And he retired from the military, and I watched him, go on his journey of cannabis and transform through that. And in that process, I said to myself, I'm not going to teach people about the stigma and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to show them. I'm going to show them my life. And so the difference between me as a cannabis nurse and me as a nurse in the hospital is I don't walk around telling people like, this is how you birth a baby. You do, like I don't do that in the real world. Like, and I wouldn't necessarily like say, hey guys, come with me to my birth. I'm a nurse at the hospital and I want to show you guys how I'm going to give birth, right? But with cannabis, it was like, if I'm going to make this real, I have to show them through my story because that's all I had. And because there's so much information out there, I started first with my story. So I put myself out there by doing the podcast. The podcast was my very first thing. And I said the first 2 episodes, I'm just going to share the history because there's people who still don't know the history. So sometimes it seems like, oh, they don't know that yet, but I like to share it because then they can say they have it. And then the second thing I did was I shared my personal story. And then I'm so grateful for my husband who came along and shared his personal story on the podcast. And that gave me, no one can challenge your personal story. No one can challenge what you've been through because you've been through it, And when I was sharing with people what I've been through and the experience I had, what happened was I found Kia had a similar experience and this one has it. And when I found all these people who had similar stories to me, my confidence grew and I knew that I had to keep sharing this information because we didn't want people not to feel like Kia and I feel. You know what I mean? Right, we don't want that. Yeah, we want everyone to feel better, right? And I looked around me and I said, I don't need to cure cancer. I just need to help moms get out of bed every morning. That's it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because helping a mom get out of bed every morning means that those kids are going to have, a great day. And that she's going to be available and able to provide for them and love on them and be present for them and be present for herself. Because a lot of times the real reason we're all like this is because we haven't taken a moment to ourselves. And I said to myself, cannabis, people want to cure cancer. And people want to use this for hospice when patients are dying. But why can't we just use this to feel better in the moment? And why should that be criminalized, and stigmatized? If we are okay with a glass of wine, why can't we be okay, with this joint or this oil or this edible or whatever it is that's going to help someone feel better at this moment? And I realized that when I would talk to people about wellness and cannabis, it was really hard because they only want to hear, what is it going to cure? Like if it's not going to cure something, then maybe it's just not that, is it going to cure something? And I'm like, what if it could just make you feel better? Sometimes you can't cure everything,
You can cure that bad attitude. Fucking joint.
I would say
a better mood.
I would say if you live in an environment relaxed, more chill, you have more, your body have more time to heal.
Yes, I will tell people this all the time. I tried meditation, I tried yoga, I tried all those things. And I would be in those classes and I would be like, oh, and now I crave it. Like, I'm like, if I could just lay in quiet. Like my mind loves the quiet, because a lot of the times what we're not, why we're not able to be quiet is because we're fight or flight is going crazy. Our minds are not balanced, and or we're stressed and anxious because of our everyday. And having that medicine just helps us have a little bit of balance. And now, I enjoy things like meditation. I enjoy going for a walk and just looking at nature, where before it was kind of like, okay, well, I got to get back to go do that post or make that podcast or whatever it is. Because I know even with, ambitious women, I will say, we struggle with like, sit down, stop doing, take some things off your list. And that was one of the things that I found beneficial, is just finding that like woosah that you can incorporate into your day. Even having more, pleasurable, experiences with my husband, and then being able to spend that time with him without feeling like in the back of my mind, it was like, okay, and then I have to go to the grocery store and then get to eggs and make sure. Because we're constantly like working on the next thing that we're about to do. You know what I mean? That's just the way that
Yes.
we are programmed. And I think that's it. It's deprogramming. It's deprogramming. And then having all of those benefits associated with it. When I don't have pain, I can get up in the morning and I can go for a hike. I mean, I'm doing things now that I haven't done in years. And I'm doing things now that I didn't even do when I was a teenager or in my 20s, because I was anxious and stressed then because of the conditions of my life. And now it's like, that just carries with you over the years. I'm 40. I'm going to be 44 on Monday.
Ooh, happy
Happy
birthday!
birthday!
Ooh,
It's your
ooh,
birthday.
ooh,
It's
ooh.
your birthday.
I'm
And
the older one. I'm the older one.
and I
You
just,
guys need to listen to me.
yeah, Gloria's in charge. Um,
This is she's 94 years. I'm sorry, 95 years old. She had a
95.
birthday in July.
oh my God. But yeah, I'm like, I feel, yes, I have aches and pains because I had an accident. So I have, those things that I deal with, but my quality of life, my quality of living is like so much improved, and I don't think twice about going for a walk or, doing anything really. 90% of the time it's like, I can get myself to the next activity and next thing I need to do. And it's not really, yes, you feel stresses and stuff, but okay, I can woosah and come back to that. And when you get good sleep, and when you have less stress and anxiety bogging you down, it really does allow you to be more creative. It allows you to be, more excited and enjoy things. I tell people now, I'm like, I never really understood how good food was. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I was like, I ate for eating's sake. It's dinner, it's lunch, it's breakfast. Now I'm like, wow, this avocado, this is a really good art. Like, and people are like, what is that about? But you start to enjoy things more and really pay attention to simple things like, wow, this is a fresh ingredient. This is really good. My husband and I started, basically, he forced me, I'll say it. He doesn't eat meat. So now we don't eat meat because he doesn't eat it. So occasionally I eat meat, but for the most part, we don't. And a lot of those changes have just come from that awareness, tasting your food, enjoying the flavors, savoring the moments, like all those things that sound like Hallmark cards. Like it really is
I
that
think
way.
I think Sandra, I know what happens to your husband, that he's not eating meat anymore.
What?
Maybe he one of those, when he smoke and sit down with you. Maybe that meat, say, "I'm a
I'm the
cow.
meat.
Why are you eating me?
I'm the meat. No,
I'm the
you know,
meat. No more. You
it's
just eat
funny.
me. Don't eat me anymore."
It's funny because my husband and I'm always like food, but like now we are very particular. Like we'll go places and it's like, this is not really the best food ever. It's just okay. And it's probably like frozen stuff that's not really, had a lot of love to it. It's like we can kind of see, like, we can enjoy things because we're now able to see like what's a really good food experience versus what's not a really good food experience. Also, not eating just to eat. Do I get the munchies? Yes. People ask me this all the time. I do get the munchies, but when we have the munchies, like I'll give you an example. Last night I wanted something sweet, and there's nothing sweet to be had. Like I have oatmeal chocolate chip cookies. Who wants that?
Man.
Mini cones. They're this small from Trader Joe's. I'm like, we can do that. But it keeps me from feeling like, oh, if I do get the munchies, I usually will have like a handful of nuts, a grapefruit, an apple, whatever is in front of me. Um, so it's a lifestyle change. And I think that's one of the things that I kind of like to share and show people. I show them through my experience as a nurse, like this is the science, but look, this is the real, and I'm pretty straight up. Like I don't try to like come across as like I'm the highest level cannabis expert in the world, because I don't feel that this plant that came from the ground requires us to be experts.
Exactly. So, Sandra, mostly your clients, when they
Yes.
contact you, what exactly they're looking for?
So a lot of people will come to me with different reasons, but I'll give you, like, I'll say a few clients I've talked to this week. So I have somebody who had pain, like joint pain, knee pain. So that was something that was affecting her. So usually what happens is people come to me, I realize it's like they're at the end of the road.
Right.
I want people to come to me before they get to the end of the road, but I don't know how to make that happen yet. So that's what my goal is. But people come to me because they've tried other things and they're like, it didn't work. And now I'm hurting. And now I'm this and that and the other. And I'm like, okay. So this was somebody who had knee pain. So she was looking for something to help relieve that. So we helped her with that. And then I had someone who was not sleeping and now was possibly, I don't think she had COVID, but she had been, what's the word? Exposed. She'd been exposed. Oh, why am I not in the camera? Sorry. She had been, I'm like, meh. This is opposite. It's so weird. But she had been exposed. So she was having, like anxiety or whatever, and also insomnia. So that's something that we had to kind of, you know, deal with, and kind of figuring out, here's what happens a lot of times. People will come to my site. I don't sell cannabis. That's not something I do. I do work with a farm. So if people want products, I will recommend, products from this farm, for CBD products, hemp products. But for medicinal, medical cannabis, I send them to a dispensary. So I will usually say, this is what CBD can help you with. This is what medical cannabis can help you with, and give them kind of like recommendations on what could help them with their situation. A lot of times people will say, I've tried CBD and it didn't work. And I always tell them, CBD takes a while. It's not something that's going to be necessarily immediate. It can be, but mostly we're looking at, a few days to weeks
Right.
for results. Where with medical cannabis, we know that you can get results immediately. However, almost every single person comes to me says the same thing. I do not want psychoactive effects. And I'm like, do you drink coffee? Do you drink alcohol or wine or, whatever? Those all give you psychoactive effects. And then they're like, oh, well, okay. I say, even CBD is psychoactive because it makes changes in your mind. It can make you more happy, sad, sleepy,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It is psychoactive. It's just not intoxicating. You're not going to be intoxicated. And I think that's one of the things that people come to me for. They come to me for relief without getting high. And sometimes I have to tell them, you might need to get high. It might be the only solution for your situation if you're looking to use cannabis, because I like to be realistic. So part of the exciting thing about when my patients come to me is it doesn't matter if they come to me just wanting CBD or if they come to me wanting like medical cannabis, they have to learn about all of it. Like the first
Right.
few minutes, it's like, this is everything that's available to you. This is what these can help you with. And this is why the science shows XYZ, XYZ, and this would be a better fit for your symptoms. And through that guidance, they learn all about these things. But the most important thing they learn is that they actually, you guys as well, make your own cannabinoids inside of your body. And lots of people don't know that. Lots of people don't know that we have an endocannabinoid system, just like a cardiovascular system, a neurological system, and all those things. We have an endocannabinoid system, and our body creates endocannabinoids, and the plants are phytocannabinoids. So they're outside of our body, and then we have cannabinoids in our body. So before, I used to say to my husband, I'm a cannabis nurse, and that makes absolutely no sense. Because cannabis is a plant, and I don't know anybody who's a Tylenol nurse. I should be an
Right.
endocannabinoid nurse because we have an endocannabinoid system. But because this system was discovered in 1994, at that time, they didn't know it existed. They were trying to figure out, why does cannabis work? Like, what is happening? And in that process, they found, oh, wait a minute, we have a whole endocannabinoid system. And that's something that I think changes the game for a lot of people. Once they know that they actually have a system that matches this plant, it makes them look at the plant a little bit differently, because it's no longer like, I have this lavender and it calms me, right? And it's kind of like, well, how does that work? Because lavender, and it's like, you're trying to understand how that works. But when you think of cannabis and you're like, wait a minute, that plant and I are making the same things, that's pretty dope. And then you start realizing, like, okay, I should look at this plant a little bit more. Maybe it's not so scary because I actually have a system that this plant responds to, because this is important for people to know. And that's the empowering part of this. And when they go to the doctor and they're like, my endocannabinoid system, the doctor's like, yeah, no, I don't have a box for that to check off on here, but it's good for you to know, because outside of cannabis, there's many ways that you can boost your endocannabinoid system that would give you the same or similar results as cannabis. Maybe longer term, maybe it'll take more time, but there are ways that you can heal your endocannabinoid system without cannabis, with different, maybe yoga, or maybe, light therapy, or, cold showers. Like, there's many things, diet, things that can help you with that.
Yeah, Sandra, so you also, when you have your clients, you talk about sativa and indica?
So sativa and indica don't mean anything to me,
Okay.
because I can have a sativa and go to sleep. I don't know what it is. It's the way I look at it is not necessarily whether it's a sativa or indica. I think those are helpful, because we know that indica can make you a little bit sleepy and in the couch, but we also want to know what else is part of this plant. So when I look at, and I don't have anything in front of me right now, but usually I have one of these little sheets on here. When I look at what's inside this plant, and if you go to like leafly.com, you can go on their website and you can type any strain that you find, you can type it in there, and it will tell you what the properties are of this plant. And why that is helpful is because there are certain chemicals, certain terpenes, as we call them, that are part of these plants. And with those combinations, that's where you see the results. So if you're having, for example, if you're feeling stressed and you have one of these strains that has limonene in it, let's say, limonene is in lemons. And when you think of peeling open a lemon, that zesty, vibrant smell, that kind of makes you happy, right? Lemons don't
Yes.
sound sad, right?
Right.
So when you look at strains that have limonene in it, those can be euphoria. They can give you euphoria. They can make you feel, less depressed, or, more upbeat. So looking at the different compounds that are in the plant is what actually benefits my clients more than looking at sativa or indica. And I think that's what happened in the beginning for me, is I got stuck in sativa and indicas, and I was like, I don't know. I don't want to be so wired. I don't want to be so sleepy. I want something in the middle. So I'm like, hybrid. And then I was like, well, this hybrid was great. This one wasn't. When you start looking at the profile, excuse me, you start to see this plant has linalool in it. Now I see linalool is found in lavender plants. So what would you think would be the results of that? It would make you more calm, more relaxed. I see now why this is not a good one for me to have, like, maybe first thing in the morning when I need to like be a little bit more, have a little bit more pep in my step. But I can definitely see how this would be helpful right when I get home from work and I'm trying to like wind down. So those are the things that I teach my clients, is how to find the right strains for them by learning these combinations, because those are way more important than sativas and indicas. But I think we're going to get there. I think we're going to get there slowly but surely, in this process. I feel like the information is spreading. One of the things that we don't have because of legalization too is we don't have a lot of medical professionals at dispensaries. And so a lot of people go to the dispensary and they have bud tenders, and the bud tenders may not know anything about.
Nothing.
Gloria's like, let me tell you what they know. They don't know nothing. Nada.
Nada.
Well, it depends on
Yeah.
where you go, because sometimes you can have very informative bud tenders and sometimes you don't. So it's like, this is why people find their favorite
Mm-hmm.
dispensaries. Like I have mine, I have the one that I like in
Mm-hmm.
my area that I go to, because from my experience, they sound knowledgeable.
Yeah.
From their advice, I've had success. You know what I mean? So, and it's a lot like
Yeah.
you say. So like back in the day, I couldn't indulge in a sativa because it
Mm-hmm.
gave me anxiety, right? Well, once you start breaking down and understanding what's in them, and a good bud tender should know that,
Yes.
right? So when you
Yes.
go there and you go to the dispensary for the first time, the person should seem knowledgeable. Like if it seems like you're talking to a pharmacist, you're like, what? Like then you take their advice and you have a good experience,
Yeah.
and that's a keeper,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But not all of them are the same.
No, I
but
think that. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but I like what Sandra is saying, that the properties of the strain.
Yes.
That for me today is like very, I didn't know that. So
Mhm.
that's very cool, because oh, it's sativa, indica, and
A hybrid.
the
Mhm.
hybrid. That's it.
But what are
Yeah.
the components of each of those
Right.
Right.
things?
And there's also, I mean, we just don't talk about anything other than CBD and THC, but there's all these other cannabinoids. There's CBN, which is good for sleep. CBN, like night night. There's CBG, which can be good for I think it's losing weight. There's all for diabetics. There's so many different
Mhm.
types
For
of
pain.
cannabinoids for pain, but we don't talk about those enough. THCV is good for appetite suppression. And when you look at these profiles, all you see is like all these letters. If no one breaks it down for you, or if no one says, look for strains that have this is going to help you. Look for strains that have some of this will get you, at least in the right direction. And the thing about it is, it's not science, because every person's body is different. So it's guidance, right? With the science. And then you are becoming the expert of what works for you, because no one's going to, and this is what I love about cannabis, but it terrifies every single one of my clients, right? You are in control. And every
Right.
client is like, tell me where to start, how much to take, when to take it. And I'm like, I am not going to tell you that. What I'm going to tell you is what the science says is start slow and low, maybe one puff, maybe two, maybe one drop, maybe, whatever. Like I give them like, this is what it says where to start. And now you have to see how that feels for you and go up from there.
Yeah, it's like assessing your tolerance.
Right.
You have to determine what's going to work for you. It's the same
Right.
thing with a lot of things. It's like, okay, so we're drinking, right?
Right.
So maybe you can have 3 beers, Sandra, and you can have 5, Gloria, but I can't have any beer because I'm gluten intolerant. Okay, so I'm not going to drink any, right? Okay, so we're all going to decide
Right.
what works for our body. And if you look at it in terms of alcohol, people are much more comfortable with that. Okay. But when you get to like marijuana and cannabis and all of that, because of
Mhm.
that stigma that's been
Right.
associated with that old propaganda from like 100 years ago, that's
Right.
still like in people's mind, just passed down from generation to generation. If we can just break through that, which is slowly happening, then I think what you said about wellness, people can begin to feel well. You can assess what works for you. I love that you are in control. So you get
Yeah.
some guidance, and then,
Yeah.
like I did, you have to experiment on yourself,
You
honey.
do. Well, that's a challenge. I mean, I'm gonna tell you what, I feel like people who come to me are definitely control freaks, and they're like, I want to have this, they want the step by step, and I appreciate that because I also like step by step. But I always have to share with them, like, it may take time. You may have to try several things. You may need to talk to me next week and we may need to tweak things. And then you may try something for a while and then you may not need that anymore. And you may need something different because once our body is balanced, and if you were trying to heal something, maybe you don't need that strain or that cultivar anymore. And so it's really helpful to kind of keep tuning in. The same strain doesn't always have to be the one that works forever. It may work for right now, what you need, and then you might switch to something else. But that whole like, you get to choose and you get to tweak this. I tell people all the time, the expert is you. I'm just your guide. You are going to be the expert in your, cannabis journey. And they always look at me like, expert, like I don't know anything. I'm like, no, you're going to know. I said, and the great thing about it is once you know, you're going to start telling everybody about it because you're going to be so excited to share what has happened in your life, since using cannabis. And that's really what happens. I mean, I feel like my clients come to me and then they refer more people, not because I'm awesome, but because I can guide them, because I can guide them and I give them the tools they need. I will even look, like, if you're going to the dispensary, I tell them, send me a link to the dispensary you're going to. We've talked about some of these products. What do you think you want to try? And they'll say, oh, I'm thinking, yeah, maybe an oil sounds good because I don't want to smoke, maybe an edible, or whatever. They'll tell me what they want, and I'll say, okay. So this is, as we talk, the one-to-one, this, whatever. And I basically put down whatever that I'll go to the dispensary menu, pull off what we talked about, and then I'll send it to them and I'll say, these are the ones that we talked about. That way you don't even have to be standing there talking to, little Johnny about your conditions and symptoms. And that has been really helpful. A lot of times, my patients will come back and they'll say, hey, this worked, this didn't work. And then we kind of go from there. And with everything going on right now in our Groundhog Day world that we're in, there's a lot happening. And, I'm so grateful to do this work. I'm so, so grateful to do it, even though there's days when I'm like, this is really hard work because I need more, support, like from doctors. My patients go to talk to their doctors about cannabis, and the doctor's like, we don't know if it works. We want to recommend that. Yeah, no, that's not, and it's like, it's hard because your patients want to generally be good patients. I don't know who came up with this term. People want to be good patients. Well, my thing is, I don't want to be a patient.
Mm-mm.
I just want, let's remove the patient part. You know what I'm saying? Let's just feel good so we don't have to be a patient, right? I mean, I know that's a luxury some people don't have, but that's basically what my goal is. When people come to me, I'm like, if I can help you find relief, where even if it means you still have to take some of your medication, maybe you take less. A lot of people think that cannabis is like the magic cure, and it may not be. You may be able to take less pain medication because cannabis makes your pain medication work better at smaller doses. You may be able to take less antidepressants or whatever. You may be able to tweak this regimen that you're on so that your life is better. And that's really the goal, so that you feel less side effects and symptoms. Because I don't know about you, but Did I say I was turning 44? I want this body to work for at least 44 more years, and
Especially since you're the only meat your husband has. You gotta keep it right.
you
Okay.
know, it's I had my daughter at a later age, and it's really been an interesting journey for me because my mom had me at a later age, but she had five children. And by the time I came, she was kind of like, whatever, over it. Um, she was older. She was older. She was like, y'all help with this one. And I realized that I watched my mom have a lot of chronic illnesses. I spent pretty much the last, I would say, 20 years of my life afraid that I was going to have all of the conditions my mother had. Because from as young as I can remember, I watched those illnesses play out before me. And I felt that that was my destiny. And I'm going to get a little emotional here, but knowing that Monday is my 44th birthday, and that at 44 years, I can say, I can hike mountains, you know,
That's
I can
beautiful.
make sure my child's not, but I can have great sex. Like I can be, I lost 40 pounds. I feel amazing.
That's
Off my
beautiful.
thyroid medication. Thank you. Do I still, people ask me all the time, well, do you still get stressed? Do you still get this, depressed, whatever? You're a human being. And if you don't feel the roller coaster of emotions in your life, then we're going to have to find medication for that because you still have to experience life. It's just that you have tools to help you manage those emotions and feelings so that you're not constantly jumping off the cliff every time the next shoe falls off or a situation happens or child does something. And that's really the important thing. I watched my husband transition from the military, and that was the most amazing experience for me because I thought I knew my husband. I really, if you ask me, I was like, I know my husband better than I know anybody else. And then I learned so much more about him in this journey because I was able to see him without the tension and the stress and the anxiety and the work and the system that bound him up like this and the traumas that he had experienced. Um, it was that process in itself has been amazing, and I really do feel this, that I feel like people start on cannabis medicine and their journey or whatever. I think that for the most part the first year or two you're not really there yet. First year or two you're trying to figure out how to assimilate and how to bring this into your life, how to normalize it, how whatever it is. And then by year 3, that's when you're kind of like, okay, I understand how to apply cannabis to various situations or to my health or for my conditions. And you start to get kind of in a better place with it. And I feel like I'm in that 3 to 4 year window now. And I feel like my husband is like a year behind me there. And I'm seeing it now. He just bought a mountain bike. I'm like, do you have your body GPS locator device on just so I don't know where you are? I'm like, okay, you could have just like get like a beach cruiser and just be like a retired person that cruises on the beach. No, he wants to go off into the wilderness, and it's amazing. It's amazing because you see something come from someone that you've never seen before, really, in this capacity, and you're just like, okay, this is scary. And I realized in watching him what my family was experiencing. They thought I was unraveling. They're like, oh my gosh, now she's hula hooping. Now she's doing this. I'm
Losing it. But you really coming together.
But I was really tapping in to my inner child. Like I was, for the first time, I'm like, you know what I really like? I really like to move. It so much so that I decided I'm no longer going to sit. I stand when I work because I was like, movement is so important to me. It's always been important to me. What made me stop moving? Okay, pain and the fear of more pain. But when I started moving, my body just reprogrammed and was like, moving? Okay, this is what we're doing. Yes, it hurt a little bit at first, but keep doing it, finding the right medicine to help me through the day. And then next thing you know, I'm hula hooping, I'm dancing again, hiking. And those things were incredibly difficult for me to do before. And not because they were physically difficult, but because the mental blocks of getting me to those steps were the most, those were the biggest mountains I've had to climb, the tallest ones. And cannabis kind of helped me find those things. You know, it was a soul medicine for me. And this is outside of nursing now, because now I'm talking more spiritual, but really cannabis to me it is a spiritual plant.
So, Sandra, we are now to an hour, and I want
Woo-hoo.
you to tell everybody where they can find you.
You can find me on all social media at the Kush Nurse. There you go.
And absolutely, you have to listen to her podcast
Please
Yes.
for sure
do.
and learn everything you can in case it could help someone that you love or yourself to just have a better life experience in the present moment. Sandra, I have two questions for you before we
Yes,
let you go.
two.
We run
Ooh,
a
I
little
like
bit
it.
over, but I have to ask these two questions before we
Yes.
let you out of here. So for everyone going through this lockdown, it's
Mm.
a bit of a stressful time. Okay, what would you recommend would be a great way for them to sort of start getting involved in cannabis if they're curious about how to help manage this time?
So, what I would say for trying cannabis is inhalation, as taboo as it sounds, is the safest, most direct method if you want to try. The reason why is because if you inhale cannabis, the results are short-lived. If you don't like it, you're only going to be high for a very short period of time. And that could be like a 2 to 4 hour window. A lot of people go in it with edibles and oils and all these things, and those are very, you're committed for a little while to see with those results, right? So those are some of the things that I always recommend. It sounds, inhalation is definitely a lower commitment level than, edibles and things like that. I would say, although people always ask me, should they start with CBD? CBD has the scientifically shown right now that CBD has the lowest side effects or unwanted effects, and that THC would be the thing that would cause the most unwanted effects, which is usually maybe some anxiety, maybe some, your heart might race a little bit, or perhaps you may have some, might make you very sleepy, etc. So CBD can be a good start for that. However, never take CBD at night the first time because it can be alerting. And it reminds me of Benadryl with kids. I don't know if you have kids, Gloria, and if Kia has them and you have kids, they'll tell you CBD, Benadryl is good. It can help them if like they're not feeling well and they're having an allergic reaction, whatever, and it can make them sleepy. However, some people, like I know when you fly, they would say like, oh, just give them a little bit of Benadryl if they're, afraid, crying or having a reaction on the plane. However, they also say don't give it to some kids because it can make them hyper. And that is kind of we call it biphasic results of cannabis. So with CBD, which is the safer entryway of cannabis, I would say start low and slow. Start in the morning time so that you can see what the results are, and then go from there. And definitely don't start at night because if you're having anxiety and you're stressed with all the things going on right now, it could have you more alert and awake and anxious at night. So that would
That
be
is a
the
great
entryway.
response. That is a great response. I actually also do often tell people to start with
Yes.
CBD as well. How I started when I got here because I wasn't ready to, my lungs don't like anything in it very often.
Yeah.
So I vape because it's softer and
Yeah.
gentler for my lungs. That's
Yeah.
also another tip for me to
Yes.
everybody out there that may want to try it.
Yes.
But I did start with CBD,
Yes.
and that I had a tincture, and that really
Yes.
helped me in the beginning days. And when that didn't feel like enough, then it was time for me to reassess, right? It's just like
Yeah.
with your pharmacology. When
Yeah.
you take it and you assess, and then maybe you need to alter your medication, maybe you need more, maybe you need less, maybe you need a
Exactly.
different one. It's the same concept, right? So my last question for you before we wrap up is, Gloria always talks about depression and anxiety and
Mm.
PTSD, right? And I talk about this as well on the
Yes.
Female Veterans podcast. And your husband was a vet who suffered from PTSD, and you were able to see the results of cannabis on changing his life. So, for those of people who might be suffering from one of those issues, what would be your top recommendation for them to get started?
So my top recommendation is if you're having PTSD, I always do suggest that you actually do see a medical provider that can at least follow you with counseling and therapy, because those things are important. Even if you're gonna, if you don't want to use pharmaceuticals, and you definitely want to use cannabis as an alternative, I would suggest, trying to at least have the therapy components there. And the reason why is because cannabis has a way of unlocking some of those triggers and traumas that we've experienced in the past. And you're going to need somewhere to download that information. And you right now are sitting at home somewhere. And I would hate for someone to try cannabis and then be sitting at home with these thoughts and feelings, that they're having. So I definitely recommend therapy or counseling or support. If it's just a support person, like I was able to support my husband through some of these things, but, having someone who can really support you in this process, someone that you can say, look, I'm trying these things. um, if they're able to be with you, or if they're able to be a phone call away, because, sometimes cannabis can make you cry. It can make you.
Yes.
I went on a walk the other day, and I just it was the tears were just flowing, but it was beautiful tears. It was things I needed to cry about. But the problem is that we've been taught as a society, you don't cry, all this stuff, and you're
You
locked
just
up.
need a purge.
Listen, you're all locked up. This is part of the problem. It's like we're emotionally constipated.
Yeah, practically. Yes. We need a diarrhea here.
Some
we're
emotional diarrhea.
emotionally we're emotionally constipated, and so sometimes you just need to go and you need to cry and let it out and move on. I definitely know I lost my mom right before my daughter, before I conceived my daughter. And for many years, I've been experiencing this terrible grief of raising a child without my mother. It's not something I ever imagined I would do. And the truth is that I couldn't, it felt like this happened to me because I'm not a good person. Like, so I don't know, you start coming up with all these things like, well, why did this happen? Well, because I wasn't good to my mother, or because this, or it was just all these things. And then one day it was like, this happened because your mother had these conditions and she lived this life this way that led to these things. You have the tool to live a different life and to be healthy. And at 44 years old, hike mountains, and really to change the narrative of what the Latino culture has kind of told us, like, eat all this stuff that you're going to regret later on. I mean, I love food, but also we are not good with moderation. You know what I mean? We're just like all or nothing. And to live a lifestyle that's much healthier. Unfortunately, some of us, our parents, they didn't have the luxury of picking the lifestyle they wanted. You know what I mean? They had to do the work that was available to them. My father was a janitor, and then he became like a maintenance person. My mom was a seamstress, working on a machine all day, all day. These are tough jobs. Limited education, limited English. They lived the life based on where they came from, their history, their narrative. But that's something that I feel is really important now. Like we have the opportunity to use cannabis even to rewrite those narratives in our brain, in our mind, because for a long time we haven't been able to feel anything. It gives you such a self-awareness that you're able to feel emotions that you can be terrifying sometimes for people because they haven't ever felt those things before. So I like to make sure that anybody who's out there, especially with COVID and all these things, we're all locked away. It's like, I don't want anyone to, have too much cannabis and they end up having anxiety or, or different, or feel depressed. There's risk of psychosis for people who have, mental health issues. So it's something that they want. I'm always like, everyone should use cannabis, but also not everyone should use cannabis. It's like you want to use it, but we want to know like what's going on with you. How can you benefit from this, and what do we need to be looking out for? So if you don't know how to do that, then reach out to me, and I can help you kind of guide you so that you can find that right medicine. But right now, as we're all locked away in our homes, I feel there's a big need for people to have access to this medicine. And we've seen it. We've seen it with all the things being shut down, and cannabis is an essential business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And before we let you go, one last thing. There's so many people that have been affected by COVID, right? And some people have even had it. I had some of my niece had it, and
Mm.
her mom. And I'm wondering, for those people who use cannabis, what the effect from your professional experience would be if they continued to use it, or if they decided to use it knowing that they have COVID right
Mhm.
now.
So I think smoking is definitely something that we want to avoid. So lighting anything and smoking it just has a bunch of carcinogens and irritants and things like that that we just want to avoid. I haven't had anyone with like active COVID. I've had people who have had COVID and then they have these residual symptoms that last for a while. And we have found that with the residual symptoms, a lot of the spasming, shortness of breath, the fatigue, and muscle aches, we found that CBD has helped significantly with that. Um, and that just using CBD and getting that initial relaxation sometimes can help them with opening up the chest walls and kind of breathing again. And the science does show that CBD can help with the inflammation and some of the mucus production, and the cytokine storm is what they call it, that causes the biggest issues that take patients onto ventilators and things like that. So in my opinion, and what I've seen positive things from using CBD. I can't say for THC products because I haven't had those clients. So the clients that I have had that have COVID have used CBD specifically. And they've used the oil, like a dropper under the tongue. And then when they've had a lot of tightness, they have actually inhaled with a dry vaporizer CBD flower. And they've found really quick results in the tightness of the chest and being able to kind of breathe again and release that. If you can't breathe, you're going to be stressed. I mean, that's like, there's no way to change
Right.
that. So in being able to breathe, it helps them to release some of the anxiety, and also in releasing some of the anxiety, it helps them with being able to breathe. They're able to sleep better, so they're getting better sleep hygiene. Their appetite is a little bit better because now they're not feeling like nauseous and all that. And then again, that inflammation starts going down. So CBD is very, very good for inflammation. A lot of times people want to know if it works for pain, and usually the way it works is it works on the inflammation first, and then that the byproduct of that is eliminating some of the pain.
Wow. I just got high just listen to all this.
She got high. That's what's next. After this, that's the after
Well,
party.
It has been so great to connect with you
Yes.
again, Sandra, and just get all the benefit of your expertise and your knowledge. I mean, what people don't know, like she is so talented. She's an artist, she's a dancer, she's created multiple businesses, all the while being a nurse, like, and then continues to evolve constantly. So I'm always like just standing in awe of everything that
Oh
she's
my
doing.
gosh.
And I'm so honored that you came and spent time with me
Thank
today.
you. This was awesome. I appreciate you guys so much. Truly, I just hope that everyone, no matter where you are, stay safe. And if you can find some cannabis products, explore.
And if you need some help, check out the Kush Nurse. You know where to
Yes.
find her. I hope you had enough time to get all of her information off the screen. And so reach out and get some guidance.
Thank y'all.
Awesome.
So, Sandra, thank you so much to be in Hot Topics tonight.
Yes, Gloria, thank you. It was awesome.
It was an honor to have you tonight.
Bye, ladies.
Bye bye. Wow, that was fantastic.
I knew you
I
were going to
love
love that
that.
episode.
You know, we here in Florida, we still, very conservative. So
Yeah, yeah, I know. Give it time. Give it time.
time, yeah,
You can always come visit me.
of
Yeah.
course.
Well, we went a little long today, but we wanted to give you guys all the good intel so you can make an educated decision on your own. And as always, if you or someone you love would like to learn more about cannabis, please do the research. There's so much online. And you can always reach out to my friend Sandra at the Kush Nurse, and she will help you out. And with that, we're going to wrap it up, right, Gloria?
Yes, we have
Uh,
to.
yes, I'm Kia Baker, and I am the host of the Female Veterans Podcast, Women Warrior Stories for the Veterans Channel, and a success coach at London Real Academy, where I help transform lives by helping people to create their dreams, make them come to life. And so I am always joined by a talented, amazing, beautiful, kind hearted soul. She's a guru. You guys don't even know. She's already a guru. She helps people. And we are going to continue to come here live and give you guys great information to hopefully add value and help you feel better, like Gloria always says. And so set your notifications. And if you're watching on YouTube, like, share, and subscribe. We're new to YouTube, so check us
Yeah.
out there as well. And well, Gloria, what do
So
you think?
I am Gloria Goldberg, the founder of the podcast Unbreakable Life with Glory, where I talk about depression, anxiety, PTSD in a holistic way, a natural way to always make you feel better. And also I'm the founder and the host of the bilingual show, The Gloria. It's tomorrow, Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, one Friday in Espanol, one Friday in English, and tomorrow's in Espanol and English. And I'm gonna have Julian Posing. He is my spiritual coach, my spiritual teacher, and he's a psychotherapist. And we're gonna talk about depression all day long tomorrow. So stay tuned tomorrow.
Wow, that's going to be a good one. And
Yeah.
Julian's incredible. So we will be back next week on Wednesday with another incredible guest for you. We're going to talk about the Wim Hof method and all sorts of cool stuff. And so come back then and we'll see you. If you're watching the replay, put hashtag replay and leave us a comment.
Right, and before we go, thank you so much, guys, to follow us, to support us, because this is the only way we can continue coming every week. We are doing this from our hearts, and this is all our intention, but we cannot do this alone. We need your support, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for all the likes, comments, shares, the feedback,
The
the
feedbacks,
messages. We love them. We love you. Have a great night.
and have a great night. Thank you so much, and I'm sorry we went a little bit late. Bye bye.